I agree with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy that this Star Trek, the original series episode, is the best. When the two most important faces of Star Trek, the original series, independently agree on which episode represents the show at its absolute best, it's worth paying attention. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy didn't always see eye to eye on Star Trek or on much else, depending on the decade, but both men repeatedly singled out The City on the Edge of Forever as the finest hour of the original series. After revisiting it with the benefit of decades of hindsight, evolving television standards, and a franchise that has expanded across generations, I completely agree with them. The City on the Edge of Forever isn't just the best episode of the original series. It's one of the best hours of science fiction television ever produced, and it remains the clearest distillation of what Star Trek was always meant to be: thoughtful, tragic, romantic, philosophical, and profoundly human. Why Shatner and Nimoy's agreement matters. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy approached Star Trek from very different perspectives. Shatner often emphasized Kirk as a bold, instinctive leader, emotionally engaged, decisive, and driven by moral certainty. Nimoy, by contrast, saw Spock as the intellectual and ethical anchor of the show, a character constantly balancing logic against deeply buried emotion. That these two actors, who embodied the show's central philosophical tension, both championed The City on the Edge of Forever is telling. It means the episode succeeds on every level that mattered to Star Trek: character, theme, moral dilemma, and emotional truth. For Shatner, the episode gave Captain Kirk his most devastating test of leadership. For Nimoy, it allowed Spock to articulate the cold logic of sacrifice without stripping it of compassion. Few episodes managed to serve both priorities equally well. A story bigger than its budget, produced during a period when Star Trek was constantly fighting network interference and budget limitations, The City on the Edge of Forever somehow feels bigger than the series itself. Written by the legendary Harlan Ellison, albeit heavily revised, the episode presents time travel not as a flashy gimmick, but as a moral crucible. The Guardian of Forever, an ancient, sentient time portal, could easily have been the episode's centerpiece. Instead, it functions as a doorway into something far more intimate: a love story doomed by history itself. That choice is crucial. The episode isn't about changing the past to save the future in a triumphant way. It's about discovering that some wrongs must be allowed to happen, no matter how unbearable the cost. Edith Keeler, Star Trek's most important guest character. Joan Collins' Edith Keeler isn't just one of the best guest characters in the original series. She may be the most important. In many ways, she represents the purest expression of Star Trek's idealism. A woman ahead of her time, committed to peace, social justice, and compassion in a world barreling toward war. What makes Edith so powerful is that she isn't a villain, a tyrant, or a threat. She's good. Genuinely, deeply good. Her existence makes the future worse, not because of malice, but because her ideals delayed the United States' entry into World War II, allowing fascism to triumph. This is a brutally mature concept for 1960s television. The episode argues that history is not shaped by good intentions alone, and that even the most noble individuals can unintentionally cause catastrophic harm. Kirk's ultimate command decision. Captain Kirk faces difficult choices throughout Star Trek, but none are as devastating as the one he makes here. Letting Edith Keeler die is not a tactical decision or a strategic calculation. It is a personal annihilation. Shatner's performance in the episode is often understated compared to his more iconic moments, but that restraint is exactly what makes it work. Kirk doesn't rage against fate. He doesn't deliver a speech. He simply holds McCoy back and allows history to take its course. In that moment, Kirk becomes the embodiment of Star Trek's highest ideal: the willingness to place the needs of countless unknown lives above his own happiness. It's heroism stripped of glory. Shatner later described this episode as one that showed who Kirk truly was, and it's easy to see why. No other story asks so much of the character, and no other story rewards that sacrifice with nothing but grief. Spock is the voice of necessary cruelty. Leonard Nimoy's Spock often functions as the moral counterweight to Kirk's emotion, but in The City on the Edge of Forever, he becomes something even more complex: the bearer of unbearable truth. Spock is the one who understands what must happen. He doesn't relish it. He doesn't hide behind logic to avoid responsibility. He states the facts plainly, knowing they will destroy his captain. Nimoy's performance is masterful precisely because it never lapses into coldness. Spock's logic isn't inhuman, it's disciplined compassion. He knows that allowing Edith to live would doom billions, and he accepts the emotional burden of that knowledge so Kirk doesn't have to carry it alone. This is why Nimoy so often cited the episode as his favorite. It allowed Spock to be logical without being cruel, and compassionate without abandoning reason. The tragedy that defines Star Trek. Many science fiction stories flirt with tragedy, but Star Trek rarely commits to it so fully. The City on the Edge of Forever does not offer a loophole, a twist, or a last-second rescue. Edith Keeler dies. The timeline resets. The Enterprise crew moves on. And yet, the episode never feels nihilistic. There is meaning in the sacrifice. The future survives because someone was willing to let go of love. This balance between hope and loss becomes foundational for the franchise. You can trace its influence through The Wrath of Khan, Deep Space Nine, Picard, and even Strange New Worlds. Time and again, Star Trek returns to the idea that utopia requires hard, often painful choices. This episode established that truth first and did it better than almost any story that followed. Why it still holds up today. What's remarkable about The City on the Edge of Forever is how well it has aged. The pacing remains tight. The themes feel timeless. The moral dilemma is still uncomfortable in the best possible way. Modern television is filled with antiheroes and moral ambiguity, but this episode proves that clear ethical stakes can be just as powerful. The choice isn't murky. It's horrifyingly clear, and that clarity is what makes it unforgettable. Even the production limitations work in its favor. The 1930s setting grounds the episode in reality, making the science fiction elements feel more meaningful rather than less. The episode that explains Star Trek to non-fans. If someone has never seen Star Trek and asks why the franchise matters, The City on the Edge of Forever is the episode to show them. It requires no prior knowledge, no deep lore, and no familiarity with the characters. Within 50 minutes, it explains everything essential about Star Trek. Its optimism, its intelligence, its emotional depth, and its willingness to confront the cost of doing what's right. That accessibility is part of why Shatner and Nimoy both revered it. It's not just great Star Trek, it's great television. A benchmark the franchise keeps chasing. No matter how many incredible episodes,